I know what you're doing, Crosshair, but you can't keep hiding. You need to talk to Hunter.
I'm not hiding. I'm training.
You know, I'm sure AZ could look at your hand for you.
I'm fine.
So what skills does this require, besides good sight?
Being a sniper is more than just looking through a scope. It's about patience, reading the environment, and knowing when you've got eyes on you. They don't trust me.
Give it time, but you will have to talk to them.
Ho! Greetings once again, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to our 243rd Ice Worm evading episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Narguy Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Reach out to us on social media. We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter/X and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Buckethead Nation, we are back. We're kicking off the 5th episode of the final season of Star Wars: The Bad Batch, and I am just so excited to, well, listen, I don't know if I should get ahead of myself, but things are lined up so that we get 3 episodes out this week and we'll be caught up. Only for a moment. Because that new episode is going to drop, in the middle of this run to get us caught up. But it puts us in a much better position to be on top of things moving forward. And that's what I'm most excited about. So, I appreciate you all being patient with me as the sort of a fluctuating schedule that I'm on continues to fluctuate. Much like the flux capacitor, it is fluxing, and we will be on task, on time, soon enough. So I appreciate your patience again. Thank you. About this episode, well, hey, you know where we left off. It was the reunion of Omega with Hunter and Wrecker, and to their surprise, to Hunter and Wrecker's surprise, the reunion with Crosshair, which is even more important when you think of the fact of how fractured their family unit has kind of become since everything started. I mean, obviously Crosshair's been the furthest removed for the longest amount of time, but with the death of Tech at the end of Season 2, things have really changed as far as keeping that kind of family unit together and bringing Crosshair back to the fold while there are still questions and concerns on the part of Hunter specifically. It's not like he's outright against it, but this is the episode where it's time to kind of have the conversation. And as our opening bit of dialogue from the episode shows us, right now Crosshair is trying to avoid that conversation, not interested in having it. Crosshair, more of a man of action than a man of words. So, again, we all know that conversation is going to happen. But what's it going to take? It's going to take something Star Warsian for that to be the case, and it's going to be a mission, right? A mission so that they can force and confront their emotions. And for Crosshair, it's putting him back at the scene of his greatest, I don't know if failure is the word I want to use, or his greatest piece of adversity, or the moment he was tested with the Empire, and came out changed from his experience. Because we go back to the scene of the Outpost. Again, in my opinion, one of the finest half an hours of Star Wars television that you can ever watch. It was incredible from top to bottom. So we go back to that scene where Crosshair had his loyalty to the Empire. He had to confront it, right? And it didn't measure up to what he thought it was. And he's going to talk about that in the next couple of episodes. So I won't get too far into it now, because at a certain point, Crosshair is able to put his own words to how he thinks things went with the Empire, and what his expectations were. Again, man of few words, but when those words are expressed, much like the much like the blasts that he shoots from his sniper rifle, they hit the mark. So good stuff from him coming up. And then again, so we're at the scene of his big tragedy, big moment, if you will. And Hunter's unaware of all of these things, but he's going to force that confrontation. He's going to force that conversation while in dogged pursuit or evasion of a deadly ice worm, of which you may wonder, well, why didn't we see these ice worm creatures when we were at the Outpost last time in Season 2? Well, we are supposed to deduce that in the Outpost it was measurably colder than it was in this episode here. And so when it's colder, the ice worms go deeper down into the core, towards the core of the planet to stay warm, even though they're called ice worms. It is what it is. And so in this episode, the temperature is more moderate in comparison to the Outpost. So there you go. Yeah, that's what we have there. All right, let's go ahead and get into our episode particulars. Let's do it, all right? This is Star Wars The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 5, The Return. Air date March 6th, 2024. Written by Armando Rose Munoz. Directed by Nate Villanueva. Our cast, it's a small one this week. D. Bradley Baker is The Bad Batch. Michelle Ang is Omega. And Ben Diskin returns as AZ3. This episode, the plot for this episode, tensions rise as our heroes navigate new dynamics on a dangerous mission. Once again, these plot descriptions, epic. All right, epic. So let's go ahead and get into the particulars. Again, we talked about going back to the scene of Crosshair's big moment in the Outpost episode last season. That is Planet Barton V. But as this episode opens up, we find our team back on Pabu and sort of enjoying the reunion with Omega and sort of trying to figure out what exactly to do with Crosshair. But of course, it is Star Wars. You don't have long to be idle before a mission arises. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Like Omega says, you're going to have to talk to him at some time, and we're going to do it in this episode. All right, friends? Bucket Nation, are you ready? Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
We've been searching for this base for a long time. Accurate intel's hard to come by. We need to know all we can before making any moves.
We have Nalisa's data pad, but it isn't working anymore. If we can get it online, we should be able to pull more intel on Tantus.
We could have schematics, entry points, maybe even the coordinates of the base itself. Imperial encryption will be a problem, especially without tech.
Plugging it into an Imperial terminal will bypass the encryption.
Where do we get one of those?
I know a facility. Remote. Understaffed. It shouldn't be a problem to infiltrate.
So a lot to kind of unpack from these opening moments of the episode. We're on Pabu. We catch up with Crosshair, who is working on his aim. He's still dealing with the tremors in his hand, particularly his right hand, which is his trigger finger. We still don't really know the cause of these tremors. Is it something relating to like some kind of nerve damage that has occurred through the various things he's been through throughout the run of the Bad Batch, working for the Empire, and the things he's had to do? Possibly relating to the Outpost episode from last season. Or is it something more mental? Is it something kind of a psychosomatic sort of situation for Crosshair and the everything he's gone through, that he's experienced at the hands of the Empire, the sense of betrayal that he feels, abandoning his brothers, if all that's coupled, kind of combined, and created a mental limitation so that he now has like a twitch or like a spasm that he can't quite control. So we'd still like to know that he's treating it like it's like something that he can work his way through. So instead of listening to Omega and having AZ check on it, he's just like, no, I'm going to power through this. I got this, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, he also comments that he's being watched from afar because, of course, Hunter and Wrecker are keeping an eye on Crosshair. They don't know what to make of this. They don't completely trust him. For the last 2 seasons, Crosshair's been trying to kill them. So it's a lot for Hunter and Wrecker. Hunter in particular. Wrecker's more forgiving, as he says earlier in this episode, that if Omega trusts him, that's good enough for him. But Wrecker is protective of Hunter, and Hunter is on edge about this whole situation, thinking that it may be a trap, a setup, that Crosshair is like some kind of bait to a trap that the Empire is set up for them. And that isn't helped at all by Echo's arrival, trying to get some more information about Tantus, and the fact that Crosshair doesn't really offer up anything of value to help them determine its location and what's going on there. But what Crosshair does come up with is a solution to help them activate Nalase's data pad that they still have access to. Now it's locked down and shut out, and Echo does make mention of the fact that it's hard to decrypt these things without tech. So another reminder that this group, despite the fact that this is like a reunion, it's called the Return, and it's essentially a reunion for Crosshair and Omega. They're still down a member of their family unit with loss of tech, and that's pointed out to us by Echo. Now, Crosshair, whether he feels some sort of responsibility because he was, whether he feels some sort of responsibility at all is that's in Crosshair's mind, and to be determined later on. But he offers up the fact that he's aware of a facility that they can go to that will bypass the decryption. And again, I don't think this helps alleviate any of Hunter's concerns. This sounds, I think, more to him like exactly the trap that he suspects Crosshair is leading them into. So there's a lot to kind of parse out through here. And Hunter, again, being suspicious of the trap, wants to do something a little different, and Omega has very strong feelings about that. Let's go ahead and play the clip.
Crosshair, Echo, and I will go to this remote facility. Wrecker and Omega, you stay here.
We're finally together and you want to split us up?
We just got you back. I am not going to risk you getting captured again.
Yeah, we escaped. But I left all those clones behind. I need to do this, Hunter.
And what you don't see there is the nod of approval from Hunter, kind of acquiescing to Omega's request here. And it speaks volumes about Omega's character. We talked about how her sort of hopefulness, her sort of naivete, in regards to many of these situations she finds herself in. But the fact that she feels a responsibility, that she escaped Tantus while all these other clones were left behind, and she feels responsible for going back and getting them out. It just says a lot about her as a person, and again, trying to do right and trying to do good things in a galaxy that's now being wrapped in the shroud of the dark side. It's nothing new for the character, but it just really reinforces it on a different level here, that she feels and protective of all the clones that are being experimented on, and she shares that information earlier in that scene that they're doing something to these clones, and she doesn't know what it is, and she alludes to the fact that she knows something's going on and there's a vault area and she can't get into it, and even Emery can't. So she mentions Emery to the group as well, that Emery's another clone that's being sort of manipulated and taken advantage of by Hemlock for the Empire's purposes. Nefarious. So what's also important to remember at this point in the episode is here, like, the dynamic's a little bit different now, because, again, for these first 2 seasons, it was Omega that was super close with specifically Hunter, but like Hunter, Wrecker, and Tech. And the episode opens up with her waking up with her dolly, and Hunter and Wrecker are there, and so it's all very familiar, very welcoming. But Omega being sort of like the empathic? That's not the word I'm looking for. That's the wrong word. But sort of being like this emotionally outgoing person now feels a connection to Crosshair, sort of like the brother that she never really got to connect with because of his decision to stay with the Empire and be a loyal soldier. So now she has this sort of relationship that her and Hunter don't have, and I don't want to say like her and Hunter are on the outs necessarily, but Omega's being quite protective of Crosshair when Hunter is the one who's kind of keeping him at arm's length. And so they have this, I think this is a fun little conversation as again, Hunter sort of is suspicious and leery of taking Omega back into this danger and believing that Crosshair is leading them into a trap. So I'm going to go ahead and play this because, again, it is rather amusing, and the stance that Omega takes here with Crosshair is pretty entertaining. But you also get to see Crosshair beginning to acknowledge that Omega brings a lot to the table.
Don't hold it against him. He's only worried about you.
I know. You think I should stay behind too?
You're capable, but you are still a kid.
I'm older than you are, little brother.
I don't know if it'll still fit still, but, here.
My old armor.
Yeah, it never felt right to get rid of it.
So yes, I do really enjoy the little brother remark, because obviously we have to remind ourselves sometimes that the clones are on an accelerated aging process, that's part of their genetic makeup, that they're going to get older faster than Omega, who is like Boba Fett, an unaltered clone. All right, so we land back on Barton IV, and Crosshair dons his old armor, the armor that we first saw him in when we were introduced to the Bad Batch. And let's just say Hunter, it continues to be suspicious. Crosshair, I think, feels insanely uncomfortable being back here at the site where he committed his crime, killing an officer. Even if his justifications were accurate and correct, I still think he wrestles with that internally. So now the fact that Hunter is calling him out and put him on the spot, let's just say they've always have had a bit of an adversarial relationship, and this puts them right back in that situation.
You said this outpost was remote, not abandoned entirely.
Well, I didn't get daily intel briefings in my cell.
I get the feeling there's more to this place than you're saying.
All right, and so they also have Batcher with them. Batcher is now suspicious. There's something underneath the surface of the snow and the ice here. We also are introduced to these emitters here, these beacons that are emitting a noise, a sound. We don't quite know what it is, but we hear it in the background of everything going on in this episode here. It will eventually trigger many issues. And let's just get to the next part of the show. I do want to play this next little bit because, again, it's more of that adversarial relationship that Hunter and Crosshair still have with one another. And again, it's in relations to the high emitter frequencies that are coming out of these beacons here around the outpost.
What are the sensors for?
Perimeter detection against local raiders.
You didn't think to warn us about these raiders before?
Now, they were all dealt with.
And how do you know that?
Take a guess.
Just following orders.
If you're scared, why don't you wait on the ship?
Hey, kill each other later. We're here for a reason. Let's crack into the data pad and get out of here.
So Echo gets them back on point.
I said talk to him, not argue with him.
He started it.
So another reminder that, again, even though they look like grown men, in many regards, the clones are still somewhat childish. And there you have it. But now they're going to get into the base, and there's a lot of neat stuff in... I shouldn't say neat. That's not quite the right word. But there are a lot of reminders that what happened in that episode is with Crosshair to this day. Still, you know, as they kind of gain entry, again, a lot has happened. A lot has changed as far as like the weather and I'm sorry. You see the passing of time through the weather, like that you can't just access the doors to the facility. You gotta kind of like dig down to be able to get into the facility. And the part where Crosshair comes across the helmets of the fallen clones, I think, is really pretty neat. You know, and again, they're helmets that we recognize. It's Mayday, Hex, and Veach from that Outpost episode. And he picks up their helmets from the ground and he places them on top of a box, which is, you know, a bit of a memorial, right? And if you think back, if you remember back to the Outpost, Mayday did the same thing to honor the fallen clones in that Outpost episode. So, you know, his time in this facility at this Outpost, it's stayed with Crosshair and really changed him in many, many fashions. Another thing you might notice as well, Crosshair back to chewing on his toothpicks. So, yeah, there you go. Good stuff, though. Very enjoyable. Let's get to the next bit of information. And again, it's not too much further into the episode that the action takes place, and we will have that forced confrontation between Crosshair and Hunter, which is really what this whole episode is gearing towards. All right, let's go ahead and play the bit of dialogue where we establish why we need to divert all power from those perimeter beacons, despite the fact that we don't really understand what they're all about.
Power to this outpost has been nearly depleted by the sensor beacons.
Then we need to divert all power to this depot.
On it.
So why'd the Empire abandon this place?
I guess it served its purpose.
Sounds familiar.
So I like that cutting rebuke from Echo. But this is that moment that I talked about. This is where Crosshair ventures off on his own, and Hunter sort of keeps an eye on him. And he finds the helmets of the fallen clone troopers, excuse me. And he lifts their helmets up and he rests them on that box as a memorial to them, you know, fallen brothers. It's a really just a really, like I said, I think it's a very unique and powerful moment for this episode, and it shows just how much Crosshair has been affected by his short amount of time at this facility. All right, now we cut back to the control room, and Omega's cut the power to the perimeter beacons, and it's time to power up that data pad and see what's going on.
It's working. Look at this manifest. There are even more clone prisoners on Tantus than we thought.
And the rumbling begins to help us learn that those beacons, they aren't to keep raiders out. There's more going on beneath the surface, as Batcher indicated to us. And again, a reminder that We didn't know about these ice worms in the previous time on Barton IV because it was colder, so the ice worms were deeper beneath the surface of the planet. So the rumbling begins. Batcher is again suspicious of something. He's barking at the ground. Crosshair's going to go out check the perimeter. Echo and Omega are going to complete the data transfer so that they get the information they need off that pad. And Hunter goes outside to sort of force the conversation with Crosshair. But before he gets there, Crosshair, again, looking out in the distance, seeing that sort of blue ice birdie creature that he saw when he first got to the planet, were more reminders of his time there and just how much has affected him. But now, let's go ahead and play that forced conversation between the two.
Are you going to be my shadow everywhere?
I know you. There's more you're not telling us. And I'm done waiting. Start talking, Crosshair. What did you do to finally get on the Empire's bad side? Betray them, like you did with us?
And so the rumbling is kind of like, like we had the blood vial clock a few episodes ago. The rumbling is sort of the countdown to the danger as it really begins to intensify for this episode. But also it works with sort of the temperament of the characters, right? Like this moment of confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair is going to bubble up, much like the ice worm is about to bubble up to the surface of the planet. But let's go ahead and check back into the data center here, as Omega, Wrecker, and Echo are trying to get that data.
Any schematics on there?
None that I'm seeing, just medical records. I think this is all we're gonna get. At least, it's something.
Batcher? Something's wrong.
Okay, now we will go back. Again, the group is becoming aware. Something's happening here. The rumbling is not normal. Batcher's freaking out like animals do. If you have dogs, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Dogs in particular. But I suspect cats and other animals know. They know when nature's got something happening. I remember my dog barking at the ground when an earthquake was coming. Like 5 minutes before it happened, we were like, what the heck's the dog barking at the ground for? So Batcher, much like that. All right, now let's get back to the confrontation itself between Crosshair and Hunter. Again, this conversation bubbling up, much like the ice worm was about to rise to the surface. The tension rise to the surface between Hunter and Crosshair.
I thought we'd take you back and not ask questions. I don't think so. Tell me what changed. What happened, Crosshair?
I killed an Imperial officer. So yes, I did betray them after they betrayed me. Oh, don't pretend like this is all about me. I tried to warn you, Hunter. I risked everything to send you that message. You ignored it. You let Omega be taken to Tantus. She went through what she did because you failed. You're angry because she escaped with my help, not yours.
So just as they're about to come to blows, again, we see the clenching of fists by Crosshair and Hunter. But now Batcher and everyone else begins to arrive outside because as angry as they are, they're not the ones causing the surface of the planet to shake. No.
Move!
And there you go. The ice worm arrives, erupting to the surface of the planet, now putting their ship in peril. And I don't know if it was a strategic decision on the part of the Bad Batch, if they had planned this all out. They're like, you know what? Right as Dune 2 comes out, we're going to have an episode with not a sandworm, but an ice worm. And then people will be like, yeah, Star Wars, they know what to do with worms. I mean, come on. If you've read Dune, you know that the maker himself, George Lucas, influenced pretty heavily by Frank Herbert's Dune. Let's just leave it at that. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But interesting that right as Dune Part 2 is coming out with Shai Halub, now we get an ice worm here on Barton IV. You know, good times. All right, so the worm attacks, and they fall back into the base, and Omega's like, hey, I guess that's what those perimeter sensors were all about. Indeed they are. But now the batch formulates a plan, and it sounds a lot like reversing what they just did.
There's a fuse box for the reserve energy grid in the back of this compound.
One of us needs to get over there and reset the grid manually.
I'll do it.
And I can get the defense system reactivated once power's back.
We'll have to draw the creature beyond the sensors before they reboot, or we'll be trapped inside the perimeter with that thing.
I'll handle it.
Not alone. We'll do it together.
You sure about that?
I'll spot you both from the tower. Then let's get to it before it tears this place apart.
Nothing like reigniting brotherly love through the act of being bait for a giant ice worm, or perhaps a variation of a graboid. You know, let's just pretend. I don't know. Any hoot. So yeah, each member of the team now has a task to perform. A bit of it sounds a little bit like Jurassic Park, but hey, what are you gonna do? And it's now time to reverse what they did. You have to draw the worm out of the side of the perimeter, get the perimeter activated in time, and hopefully no one dies in the process. So as they attempt to draw the creature out, a hunter gets pulled down into the tunnels that the creature is creating as it traverses the landscape here. And as Wrecker makes his way to his part of the plan on the other side of the compound, he asks a very important question that all Star Wars fans already know the answers to.
Why? Why is there always a huge monster?
Because that's how George Lucas likes it, gosh dang it, and we just keep it going forever and ever. So this is, again, the big action piece of the episode. Not a lot of big, insightful bits of dialogue, but what the little quips they have are quite enjoyable. But everyone's here to perform their task. Omega's got her job, Echo has his job, Wrecker has his job, and it falls to Crosshair, Hunter, and Batcher, to a certain extent, I suppose, working together and learning to trust each other once again. And that's what this all really comes down to. And, you know, when that moment happens, when they get to the other side of the perimeter, after Crosshair has rescued Hunter from the underground tunnels and brought him back to the surface of the planet, and they make the run back towards the base to get on the other side of that perimeter fence that's about to be reestablished. They don't say anything with words. It's a look and a nod that, okay, you know what, we're good. You know, I know where you're coming from, and I trust you now. You've saved my life. You did your part. You pulled your weight in the mission. There's nothing to question here because Hunter's just witnessed Crosshair's actions here. And, you know, I think maybe in his mind, it maybe didn't answer every question he has, but it answered enough of Hunter's reservations that he's less untrusting of his brother. And that's sort of cemented even further when, as they are walking back towards the compound, and Wrecker, Omega, and Echo exit the compound to see if they're okay, the way Wrecker runs out and embraces them both at the same time. Again, sort of like a reforming of the family unit that they had striven for such a long time. Unconsciously even, you know, I don't think they were aware of the family unit they were creating, but Wrecker seems to acknowledge that perhaps more openly for the first time than anyone else in the group by embracing both of his brothers in this big hug. So it's a really nice moment here, and let's go ahead and catch up kind of towards, you know, we're basically at the end of the episode here. But Echo and Omega are going to have a little conversation here about the data pad and their brothers.
See? They always work it out. And I don't even see any blood this time. That's progress.
Do you think the intel we recovered will help you and Rex?
We still don't know the coordinates of Tantus. But between the data pad and all you and Crosshair have told me, we're closer to finding and freeing those clones.
I wish I could have done more to help them.
You did all you could, kid. And you did exactly what you're supposed to do. You got out of there.
All right, so we're now to the big moments to close out the episode. Let's get to it.
Hunter. I thought I knew what I was getting into with the Empire. I thought I was being a good soldier.
Nobody really understood what was happening back then.
I've done things. I've made mistakes.
I have regrets too, Crosshair. All we can do is keep trying to be better. And who knows? There just might be hope for us yet.
And there you have it. You know, Hunter with some words that all of us can live by, because I think all of us make mistakes, but we keep trying to learn from them and move forward, right? And so for Crosshair, I think a very important moment for him as well. Now he's returned to the scene of his crime, and I think he's able to move on from it himself. You know, I guess the question is, how does he view his mistake, right? I don't think he considers killing the Imperial officer the mistake that he made. It was letting it come to that in the first place. And so him being forced to sort of confront that by coming back to Barton IV, a very big moment for him as far as his psychological healing goes, and rejoining Clone Force 99 and kind of getting back with the group, with his brothers. And, you know, he still has a lot to kind of account for, and that comes up in the next 2-part episode that we're gonna get to later this week, because he's run into a lot of other clones in his time with the Empire, and it didn't go well. Commander Wolf will make his return appearance in the next episode, and he's got a grudge against Crosshair, and they will have to have a little chat as well. And again, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's a very insightful one. And again, Crosshair is a man of few words, but when he uses those words, they hit the mark. So, yeah, it's good stuff. It's exciting stuff, and I can't wait to get into it with you guys. This episode, 8 1/4 buckets. I wish it drove the plot a little bit more forward. I wish it drove the plot a little bit more forward, the whole Tantus thing. But I really enjoyed the emotional beats, getting this team back together, getting Hunter and Crosshair back together on the same page. Good stuff. Crosshair back at the scene of the outpost where all his trauma occurred. Good stuff. You know what? Let's just round up. 8.5. Let's just do it. 8.5 buckets. There it is, Buckethead Nation. I appreciate you guys so much for taking the time to always download, listen, and stream this show. Your support is the reason why I continue to do it. And I'm having fun, and I'm glad you guys are here. Hit me up on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision, Twitter /X, and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If your podcasting platform allows it, give us those sweet 5-star reviews. They help our show out tremendously, and we appreciate you taking the time to do so. Thank you. This is the Mandovision Podcast, and I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you for being here. We'll be back again. The plan is 3 episodes this week, and it's going to put us in a real good spot to be on time with everything. You know, right when those episodes drop, we'll be there a day or so-ish later. We'll see how that goes. Still working it out. Flux capacitor still fluxing. So, you know, but we're getting closer. We're getting so closer. So again, thank you for the support. We will be back very, very soon, Bucketheads. You guys continue to be awesome. Continue to be great and amazing Star Wars fans. Kind, supportive, understanding, embracing the crazy ideas of others, even if they're crazy and you don't agree. Just, you know what? We're all in this together. All right? All right, Bucketheads. Remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I would like to see the baby.